The vast command bridge of the Cathar flagship, Iron Claw, hummed with activity as Supreme Commander Forlag stood with his massive arms folded behind his back, gazing at the small blue-green planet displayed on the main view screen. At over 9 feet tall, Forlag dominated the space around him, his battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the amber lighting. The bridge crew, all warriors of the mighty Cathar Empire, worked diligently at their stations, their four-fingered hands dancing across holographic interfaces. "Magnify Sector 4, Forlag commanded, his deep voice reverberating through the command deck. The image shifted, zooming in on a sprawling metropolis on the planet's surface. So this is what they call a city. Primitive structures. Inefficient design. First Officer Krell approached, offering a data tablet. "The scout ships have completed their preliminary survey, Supreme Commander. The dominant species calls themselves humans. Their technology is rudimentary compared to ours. They have only recently achieved limited space travel within their own system." Forlag took the tablet, his yellow eyes narrowing as he scrolled through the images of Earth's defenders. The corners of his rigid mouth plates twitched upward in what passed for a smile among the Cathar. "Show the War Council," he ordered. The main view screen shifted to display three-dimensional holograms of Earth's military forces: tanks, aircraft, naval vessels, and infantry soldiers. The command bridge erupted in guttural laughter as the Cathar officers observed the tiny human soldiers, barely reaching the height of a juvenile Cathar's knee. "These are their warriors?" bellowed War Minister Thrax, his massive frame shaking with laughter. "I've seen more intimidating maintenance drones. Their largest weapons platforms could be crushed underfoot," added Fleet Commander Zoc, pointing at an image of an Earth battle tank. "And look at their armor, primitive metal alloys that would shatter against our weakest energy weapons." The mockery continued as the War Council assessed Earth's defenses, calculating that conquest would require minimal resources. Only Science Officer Mira, the smallest among them, but respected for her analytical mind, seemed cautious. "Supreme Commander," she said, her voice softer than the others, but precise, "our sensors have detected unusual energy signatures in several regions that don't match their apparent technological level. There are also defensive structures our scouts couldn't identify." Forlag dismissed her concerns with a wave of his massive hand. "Anomalies in our scanning equipment, nothing more. This species still burns fossil fuels for energy. They pose no threat to the Empire." "With respect, Commander," Mira persisted, "the readings suggest." "Your concerns are noted, Science Officer," Forlag interrupted, his tone making it clear the discussion was over. "But I will not delay our glorious conquest because of sensor ghosts and the natural caution of lesser minds." Mira fell silent, but her four-fingered hand tightened around her data tablet. She had served in enough campaigns to recognize when warrior pride overcame strategic wisdom. "Prepare the invasion fleet," Forlag announced to the War Council. "We will secure this Earth for the Empire, harvest its abundant resources, and determine whether these humans are worthy of enslavement or mere extermination." As the council members saluted and the transmission ended, a priority alert flashed across the command console. Communication Officer Drac turned to Forlag, confusion evident in his posture. "Supreme Commander, Scout Vessel Tark 7 has ceased transmitting. Last known position was a remote region designated Siberia by the natives." "Mechanical failure," Forlag said dismissively, "or crew incompetence. The atmosphere on that planet contains corrosive oxygen. Perhaps they failed to properly seal their equipment." "The final transmission included fragmentary data," Drac continued, "but it's heavily corrupted. There are mentions of contact and defense systems activated." Forlag growled, his patience wearing thin. "Send the data to Science Officer Mira for analysis. But the invasion proceeds as planned. I want our orbital weapons positioned to neutralize their primary military and command centers. The Cathar Empire will not be delayed by a single lost scout ship." As the Iron Claw moved into attack position, Forlag gazed at the blue planet with anticipation. Soon it would be another jewel in the Empire's crown, its resources feeding the ever-expanding war machine, its inhabitants learning the price of existing in the path of Cathar conquest. He had no idea that the tiny warriors he had mocked were about to teach him a lesson in humility that the Cathar Empire would never forget. The first orbital strikes from the Cathar warships should have been devastating. Their energy weapons, capable of vaporizing entire military complexes, fired upon major defense installations around the globe. Forlag watched with satisfaction as the beams lanced toward Earth's surface. But something unexpected happened. Instead of reports of destruction, the weapons officers stared in confusion at their consoles. Many of the energy beams dissipated before reaching their targets, weakened by previously undetected defensive fields. "Impossible!" shouted Weapons Commander Grask. "Their technology cannot include energy shielding of this magnitude." "Report," Forlag demanded, his confidence wavering for the first time. "Approximately 60% of primary targets remain intact," replied Tactical Officer Vex. "Our sensors failed to detect advanced defensive systems. They appear to be using some form of energy absorption technology similar to our own early planetary shields." Forlag slammed his massive fist against the command console. "Adjust targeting parameters and intensify beam concentration. I want those command centers destroyed." A second volley fired, with marginally better results, but still far from the overwhelming devastation they had anticipated. Forlag, refusing to show concern before his officers, made a swift decision. "Launch ground forces immediately. Our warriors will crush whatever resistance remains. Prepare drop ships for major urban centers." Throughout the massive warship, Cathar soldiers prepared for battle. Standing between 8 and 10 feet tall, each warrior donned heavy battle armor that augmented their already formidable strength. Their weapons, plasma rifles, gravitational disruptors, and sonic cannons, represented the pinnacle of Cathar military technology. Commander Grak, a particularly aggressive officer known for his brutality, led his elite unit onto a drop ship. His battle armor was adorned with trophies from conquered species, and his reputation for crushing resistance was unmatched. "We face tiny creatures with primitive weapons," he told his warriors. "Show no mercy. The glory of the Empire demands total victory." The drop ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing from the friction. As they approached New York City, Grak observed the chaotic evacuation of civilians and the hastily assembled defensive positions of human military forces. "Pathetic," he sneered, watching tanks and artillery pieces being positioned. "Those weapons couldn't penetrate a scout ship's hull, let alone our battle armor." The drop ships landed in Central Park and major intersections, disgorging hundreds of massive Cathar warriors. Citizens fled in terror as the alien invaders, standing twice the height of an average human, marched forward with weapons raised. The first volleys from Earth's military did little against the advanced armor of the Cathar. Tank shells bounced off their shields, and conventional bullets seemed as ineffective as raindrops. Grak led his warriors down Broadway, firing indiscriminately at buildings and vehicles. "Forward! Crush their resistance!" he commanded, expecting the human forces to break and run at any moment. But then something changed. The frontal assaults ceased, and the human defenders melted away into the concrete canyons of the city. Grak initially took this as a sign of cowardice and victory. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came when a Cathar warrior at the rear of the formation suddenly collapsed, his armor's energy core disabled by a precision shot through a small vulnerable junction point that should have been impossible to target with human weaponry. Before Grak could process this, explosions erupted beneath the street, carefully placed to separate his forces into smaller groups. Buildings that had seemed abandoned suddenly bristled with defenders using unconventional weapons. Not just firearms, but improvised explosives, targeted EMP devices, and even hardened projectiles launched from pneumatic systems that somehow penetrated Cathar armor at specific points. "Ambush!" Grak roared, firing his plasma cannon at a building where he'd spotted movement. "Form defensive positions." But the humans didn't engage in direct combat. They struck from sewers and subway tunnels, from windows and rooftops, always targeting the same vulnerable points on Kthar armor that should have been unknown to them. When the warriors gave chase, they found only empty rooms and more traps. Throughout other landing zones across the planet, the same pattern emerged. The Kthar, expecting to simply march through minimal resistance, instead found themselves engaged in frustrating urban warfare against an enemy that refused to stand and fight properly. On the Iron Claw, Forlag received increasingly disturbing reports, not of overwhelming casualties. Those were still relatively light, but of the unexpected effectiveness of human resistance and their seemingly impossible knowledge of Kthar weaknesses. They're targeting cooling vents and sensor arrays with precision, reported. First Officer Krell, and they're using some form of localized EMP weapon that temporarily disables our warrior systems. Oh, demanded Forlag. Their technology shouldn't allow for such tactics. Science Officer Mira, who had been analyzing data from the Lost Scout ship, approached hesitantly. Supreme Commander, I believe I've partially decoded the final transmission from Tark 7. The scout ship wasn't destroyed by mechanical failure. It was captured. Forlag's yellow eyes widened. Captured? By these primitives? The evidence suggests they disabled it using methods similar to what our ground forces are encountering now. If they captured it intact, the implication hung in the air. If humans had managed to study Kthar technology from the scout ship, it would explain their unexpected preparedness. Impossible, Forlag growled, though with less conviction than before. Intensify the ground assault. Commander Grack's elite unit will spearhead a concentrated attack on their New York command center. We'll crush their resistance with overwhelming force. As new orders were transmitted to the embattled Kthar forces on Earth, Grack received his instructions with savage anticipation. Gathering his scattered warriors, he led them toward what intelligence identified as a human military command post in a partially collapsed industrial sector. They've been lucky so far, he told his battle-hardened troops. But now we'll show these tiny creatures the true might of the Kthar Empire. The industrial zone was eerily quiet as Grack's forces advanced through debris-littered streets. Buildings showed signs of the initial orbital bombardment, with twisted steel and shattered concrete creating a desolate landscape. Life signs ahead, reported a warrior operating scanner. Concentrated in that central structure, Grack grinned, his facial plates shifting to reveal sharp teeth. They're trapped. No underground access from that building. Warriors of the Empire, advance and show no mercy. The Kthar unit moved forward confidently, their massive forms dwarfing the human-scaled environment. Grack anticipated a glorious slaughter that would turn the tide of the invasion. He didn't realize he was walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. The first warning came when precisely timed explosions brought down select buildings around them, not to crush the Kthar warriors, but to channel them into a predetermined killing zone. Snipers opened fire from concealed positions, their rounds striking with uncanny precision at the vulnerable points where helmet seals met neck armor. Return fire, Grack commanded, but the human defenders were invisible, using thermal camouflage that confused Kthar sensors. Then came the second wave, rocket-propelled grenades modified to emit electromagnetic pulses on impact, temporarily disabling Kthar weapon systems. In the confusion, Grack found himself separated from the main force with only 5 of his elite guards. Stand firm, he ordered as they formed a defensive circle. They are merely delaying the inevitable. The dust from the explosions slowly settled, and Grack peered through the haze, expecting to see human soldiers in their flimsy armor fleeing for better positions. What he saw instead froze his blood. From the shadows emerged soldiers unlike any he had seen in the intelligence briefings. These humans wore advanced exoskeletons that augmented their small frames, making their movements quick and precise. Their armor incorporated elements that were disturbingly familiar, cooling systems and energy distribution networks that bore unmistakable similarities to Kthar design principles, but miniaturized and adapted for human physiology. Their weapons were equally shocking: compact plasma rifles, Gauss guns, and disruptor technology that should have been far beyond Earth capabilities. Impossible, whispered one of Grak's guards. They've weaponized our technology. Show no fear. Grak roared, raising his cannon. They are still inferior beings. The battle that followed was brief but intense. The humans moved with astonishing speed, their exoskeletons allowing them to leap between positions, flank the Cathar warriors, and strike with coordinated precision. They communicated through integrated systems, responding to Cathar tactics almost before the aliens implemented them. Grak watched in horror as his elite guards fell one by one, their armor breached by weapons that shouldn't exist on this planet. A plasma bolt struck his arm, searing through his armor and revealing the secret of the humans' effectiveness. They had perfectly calibrated their weapons to overload Cathar's shield frequencies. As the last of his guards collapsed, Grak stood alone, surrounded by the tiny army that had somehow turned the tables on the invaders. His weapon systems damaged, he resorted to brute strength, charging at the nearest human soldier. The soldier sidestepped with augmented reflexes, and Grak felt a searing pain as a focused energy blade sliced through his leg armor, severing tendons. He crashed to the ground, roaring in pain and fury. The human soldiers surrounded him, their weapons trained on vulnerable points in his armor. Their leader stepped forward, retracting the faceplate of his advanced helmet to reveal a stern human face. Commander Grak of the Cathar Empire, the human said in perfect Cathar language, shocking the alien further. You are now a prisoner of the Earth Defense Force. Your invasion has failed. Grak's yellow eyes widened in disbelief. How do you know our language? How do you have our technology? The human commander smiled grimly. Did you really think yours was the first alien ship to reach Earth? We've been preparing for this day for decades. As Grak was secured and sedated for transport, the human commander activated his communication system. Eagle Actual to Olympus. High-value target secured. Phase 3 is green. I repeat, Phase 3 is green. On the Iron Claw, the atmosphere had shifted from confident aggression to growing concern. Reports from ground forces across Earth painted a disturbing picture, not of overwhelming casualties, but of tactical defeats that should have been impossible against a technologically inferior enemy. We've lost contact with Commander Grak's unit. First Officer Krell reported grimly. Last transmission indicated they were engaged with human forces using advanced weaponry. Forlag paced the command bridge, his massive frame radiating tension. Impossible. Their most advanced weapons are chemical projectile launchers and crude atomic devices. The evidence suggests otherwise, Supreme Commander, Science Officer Mira interjected. Further analysis of our lost scout ship's final transmission indicates it was disabled by targeted electromagnetic pulses and precision kinetic weapons. The humans are using technology that appears to be derived from our own. You suggest they've stolen our designs? Vorlagt. Preposterous. Not stolen, Mira clarified. Adapted. The data suggests they've been studying crashed alien vessels for decades. Not just Cathar, but possibly other species as well. They've reverse-engineered and miniaturized various technologies to suit their smaller physiology. Before Forlag could respond, the ship's sensors blared warnings. Communication Officer Drak turned from his console, his expression one of shock. Multiple unknown vessels approaching from concealed positions on the dark side of their moon and what appear to be hidden orbital platforms. They're using some form of advanced stealth technology that masked them from our sensors. The main view screen displayed the approaching Earth vessels, sleek, nimble craft that bore little resemblance to the primitive space technology observed during initial scans. These ships moved with precision, their hulls incorporating materials that partially absorbed Cathar scanning beams. Impossible, Forlag whispered, echoing his earlier denial, but with far less conviction. They're targeting our engines and shield generators, reported Tactical Officer Vex. Their weapons are... He hesitated, seemingly unable to believe his own readings. They're modified versions of our own plasma technology calibrated specifically to our shield frequencies. The first impacts rocked the Iron Claw, far more powerful than anything Forlag had thought possible from Earth weapons. Secondary explosions indicated critical damage to several systems. Return fire. Forlag commanded. Launch interceptors. But the human vessels demonstrated unexpected maneuverability, evading the Kthar energy weapons with practiced precision. Their attacks continued, systematically targeting vulnerable points on the massive warship that should have been unknown to any but Kthar engineers. As the battle in space intensified, internal sensors triggered new alarms. Intruder alert. Multiple breaches detected in lower hangar bays, shouted Security Chief Vask. The security feeds showed human soldiers in advanced exoskeletons similar to those that had defeated Grax forces, moving with purpose through the ship's corridors. They wore armor incorporating stealth technology that partially obscured them from Kthar sensors, making them difficult to track. How they board us? Forlag demanded. They appear to have used our own transporter technology, Mira replied, her voice steady despite the crisis. Modified, but recognizable in its function. Seal all bulkheads. Direct security forces to protect critical systems. Forlag ordered, drawing a sidearm. These vermin will not take my ship. But the human strike team moved with unexpected knowledge of Kthar ship layouts. They avoided main corridors, using maintenance shafts and emergency access tubes to bypass security checkpoints. Their objective became clear as they converged on paths leading to the command. Bridge. Supreme Commander. First Officer Krell said with uncharacteristic urgency, "We must evacuate you to the secondary command center." Forlag snarled, his warrior pride rebelling at the suggestion of retreat. "I will not flee from creatures half my size. Prepare for bridge defense." The command bridge crew took up defensive positions, weapons ready as the massive doors were sealed and reinforced. Forlag stood at the center, his imposing figure radiating deadly purpose. "Let them come," he growled. "They will learn the difference between stealing technology and facing true Kthar warriors." The minutes that followed were tense, punctuated by distant weapons fire and reports of security teams engaging the intruders. The battle in space continued to rage, with more Kthar vessels reporting critical damage from the surprisingly effective Earth fleet. Then, without warning, the bridge doors buckled inward, breached not by brute force, but by precisely placed charges that targeted the locking mechanisms. Through the smoke poured a dozen human soldiers in their advanced combat exoskeletons, moving with coordinated precision. The bridge erupted in chaos as Kthar officers fired their weapons, only to find the humans were already diving for cover, returning fire with modified weapons that penetrated Kthar armor with disturbing ease. Forlag roared in rage, firing his heavy plasma cannon at the invaders. One human was caught in the blast, their exoskeleton partially melting under the intense energy. But the others adapted quickly, splitting into smaller teams that flanked the Kthar defenders. First Officer Krell fell, a precise shot piercing his helmet visor. Weapons Commander Grask managed to crush one human soldier with his massive strength before a concentrated burst of fire brought him down. Through the chaos, Forlag recognized the distinctive armor of the human commander, more elaborate than the others, with command insignia etched into the shoulder plates. This human fought with exceptional skill, each movement efficient and deadly. As his bridge crew fell around him, Forlag faced the bitter reality that his invasion force, which should have easily conquered this planet, was instead being systematically defeated by creatures he had dismissed as primitive and weak. "Face me, human," Forlag challenged, targeting the commander with his cannon. "Let's end this warrior to warrior." The human commander moved with augmented speed, evading the plasma burst and closing distance in a way that seemed impossible for such a small being. A focused energy blade extended from the commander's gauntlet, slicing through Forlag's weapon with precision. Thrown off balance, Forlag resorted to his natural strength, swinging a massive fist at his opponent. The human's exoskeleton whined with effort as it enhanced its wearer's reflexes, allowing them to sidestep the blow and counter with a strike to Forlag's knee joint, a known weakness in Cthar physiology that should have been a carefully guarded secret. As Forlag stumbled, the human commander spoke in clear, unaccented Cthar language. Your invasion has failed, Supreme Commander Forlag. Your ground forces are isolated and surrounded. Your fleet is crippled. Surrender now and prevent further bloodshed. Forlag's yellow eyes widened at hearing his name and language from the human's lips. Who are you? How do you know these things? The human commander retracted their helmet visor, revealing the face of a middle-aged woman with steely eyes and a scar running across her right cheek. General Diana Foster, Earth Defense Force, she replied. And as for how we know, your people aren't the first to think our small size makes us easy prey. We've been collecting fallen alien technology for over 70 years, preparing for this day. Forlag glanced around his bridge, now secured by human soldiers. His mighty warship, pride of the Cthar fleet, had been infiltrated and partially disabled by beings he had mockingly called tiny creatures just hours earlier. The Cthar Empire does not surrender, he growled, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Then the Cthar Empire will fall, Foster replied evenly. Our forces are currently targeting the engines and command systems of your remaining vessels. We've already transmitted evidence of your defeat to your homeworld. As if to emphasize her point, the ship shuddered from another impact, and emergency warnings flashed across still-functioning consoles. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Commander Forlag faced a decision he had never anticipated. Surrender or watch his entire invasion force be systematically destroyed by a species he had gravely underestimated. His massive shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly. If I order my forces to cease fire, what terms do you offer? General Foster's expression remained stern. Complete withdrawal from our solar system. Transfer of technical data and star charts from your databases. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty and classification as a protected world under whatever interstellar conventions your people recognize. And my warriors? My crew will be treated according to our laws of war. No experimentation, no torture. Those who haven't committed atrocities against civilians will eventually be repatriated. Forlag considered his options, recognizing that he had none. With a defeated growl, he activated his command frequency. All Cthar forces, this is Supreme Commander Forlag. Stand down. I repeat, stand down. Cease hostilities immediately. With those words, the Cthar invasion of Earth effectively ended. Throughout the planet, alien warriors received the unprecedented order to surrender, while in orbit, the once mighty fleet powered down their weapons systems. In the days that followed, Forlag and his captured officers were held in specially designed containment facilities that accommodated their massive size while preventing escape. During debriefing sessions, the full extent of humanity's preparation was revealed to the stunned alien leaders. Your scout ship wasn't the first alien vessel to reach Earth, explained Dr. Eliza Morgan, head of xenotechnology at the Earth Defense Force, during one such session. She was a small woman with intelligent eyes and surprisingly respectful demeanor toward her captives. In 1947, a scout ship from the Zeta Reticuli system crashed in New Mexico. Through the decades, we recovered crash debris from at least 6 different spacefaring species. Impossible, muttered War Minister Thrax, who had been captured when his shuttle was disabled during an attempted escape. We would have known of such contacts. Dr. Morgan smiled thinly. Would you? Most were exploration vessels or scientific missions, not military expeditions. And those that were military in nature never returned to report their findings. She activated a holographic display showing the evolution of Earth's secret defense program, from crude reverse engineering efforts in the 1950s to the sophisticated adaptation of alien technology that had allowed them to defeat the Cthar invasion. After the third crash recovery, our governments created a unified planetary defense initiative, hidden from the public to prevent panic. We pooled resources, brilliant minds, and the alien technology we'd gathered. We couldn't match your industrial capacity or size, so we focused on efficiency adaptation, and targeted application of the technologies we uncovered. Forlag studied the display with a mixture of anger and reluctant admiration. You created weapons specifically designed to counter Cthar systems. Yes, we detected your scout ships years ago and captured one intact 16 months ago. That gave us the final pieces we needed for our defensive systems. And the exoskeletons your soldiers use? Dr. Morgan nodded. Adapted from multiple alien technologies, scaled for human physiology. They compensate for our smaller size and lesser strength while maximizing our natural agility and speed. Science Officer Mira, who had been allowed to assist wounded Cthar warriors, spoke up. You knew we were coming. You were prepared specifically for us. We've been preparing for any possible invasion for decades, General Foster interjected, entering the debriefing room. But yes, once we identified your scout ships, we accelerated production of Cthar-specific countermeasures. Forlag growled softly. You let our scouts report minimal defenses. You wanted us to attack. Foster met his gaze unflinchingly. We needed to demonstrate that Earth is not an easy target. Your empire isn't the only expansionist power in the galaxy. Consider your defeat a message to any others who might see our size as a sign of weakness. As the debriefings continued, the remains of the Cthar invasion fleet prepared for a humiliating departure from Earth orbit. Damaged vessels were repaired just enough for the journey home, while their weapons systems remained partially disabled as a precaution. In his final meeting before departure, Forlag faced General Foster alone, both leaders studying each other with new perspective. Your people fought well, Forlag admitted grudgingly, with unexpected skill and courage. Foster nodded, accepting the compliment. Size isn't everything, Commander. History has shown repeatedly that determined defenders with superior strategy can overcome invaders with greater numbers or strength. The Cthar Empire will not forget this defeat, Forlag warned, though there was more resignation than threat in his tone. We're counting on it, Foster replied. Take this message back to your Emperor. Earth is not defenseless, not primitive, and not alone. We have allies among other species who've chosen cooperation over conquest. Attack us again, and the response will be even more decisive. Forlag's yellow eyes narrowed. You bluff. What allies would stand with tiny creatures against the might of our empire? Foster smiled enigmatically. Do you really think your people are the only ones who've underestimated us because of our size? Return home, Commander. Reconsider what strength truly means. Hours later, as the Cthar flagship limped away from Earth orbit with its defeated fleet, Forlag stood on his partially repaired bridge, watching the blue planet recede on the view screen. His once proud crew worked in subdued silence, the shame of defeat weighing heavily upon them. First Officer Krell, who had survived his injuries, approached cautiously. The journey home will take 17 cycles at our reduced speed, Supreme Commander. The Emperor will expect a full report upon our arrival. Forlag continued staring at the view screen, his thoughts dark. And what shall I tell him, Krell? That we were defeated by creatures half our size? That our mighty warships were crippled by technology stolen and adapted from our own designs? We will tell him the truth, Krell responded solemnly. That we gravely underestimated our enemy. That size and strength are not the only measures of a species' worth or threat. The Imperial Court will demand blood for this failure, Forlag said, finally turning from the screen. Mine, most likely. Perhaps, Krell agreed. Or perhaps this defeat will force our people to reconsider our approach to conquest. The humans adapted and survived. Perhaps the Cthar must do the same. Science Officer Mira joined them, her datapad containing detailed analyses of human technology. Their adaptability is remarkable, she observed. They took disparate alien technologies and created unified systems that worked with their physiology rather than trying to simply copy designs intended for larger species. Intelligence over brute strength, Forlag mused. A concept many in the Imperial Court will struggle to accept. As the Earth became just another dot of light among the stars, Forlag made a decision. Record everything. Every detail of their defenses, their adaptations, their strategies. The Empire must learn from this defeat, or we risk facing extinction at the hands of tiny creatures we once laughed at. The flagship continued its journey home, carrying with it a lesson that would shake the foundations of the mighty Cthar Empire. That true strength lies not in size or raw power, but in adaptability, intelligence, and the will to survive against overwhelming odds. On Earth, celebrations of the successful defense gradually gave way to renewed vigilance. The world's leaders, now united in ways previously thought impossible, continued to build upon their defensive technologies, knowing that the Cthar were certainly not the last threat they would face among the stars. In a secured facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Foster studied the star charts obtained from the Cthar databases, identifying potential allies and threats in the vast galactic community. Beside her, Dr. Morgan examined new possibilities for adapting alien technology to human needs. "Do you think they'll return?" Morgan asked, not looking up from her work. Foster considered the question carefully. "Perhaps, but not soon and not unprepared. We've changed the equation. We're no longer just the tiny army they laughed at." "We never were," Morgan replied with a slight smile. "We were always more than our size." Foster nodded, her gaze fixed on the vast starscape displayed before them. "And now the galaxy knows it too.